Swayam Prabha. Digital India. Educated India.
Good morning. Today we will discuss First World War 1914 to 1918. The First World War is one of the most significant events in the history of the world. World War I was a global war centered in Europe, which became the major first conflict since the Napoleonic Wars, which involved all the major European countries. More important than the military significance of the war were its social, political, economic, and diplomatic consequences. Historians disagree as to the causes of this war, and the debates on the subjects continue. David Thompson, in his book Europe Since Napoleon, has remarked that the most important thing about the First World War is that it was unsolved, unintended, and the product of a long sequence of events which began in 1871. The international situation in Europe for a little over 2 decades before the war was one of the armed peace. The world had been split into two opposing camps of Central Powers and Allied Powers. Bismarck's diplomatic efforts culminated in the formation of the Triple Alliance between Germany, Austria, and Italy in 1882. At the same time, he attracted Russia in his side by making separate agreements with her in the Dreigesel-Bond treaties, made the Insurance Treaty of 1887 also. In time, a counter system of alliance grew up in Europe to meet the threat of the new alliances. The outbreak of the First World War is one of the most controversial and repeatedly debated subjects in the history. According to J. Longdon in his book July 1914, The Long Debate 1918 to 90, the historical debate has been intensely affected by the prevailing political climate and by the urge to find out who was primarily responsible for the war. Day E. Lai says in his book The Official Report on the Origins of the First World War, written by the victorious power and presented to the Versailles Peace Conference in 1909, offered some of the conclusions that the war was premeditated by Germany and its allies and resulted from acts deliberately committed in order to make it unavoidable. Germany, Austria-Hungary deliberately worked to defeat all the many conciliatory proposals made by the extreme power to avoid war. The intervening period, that is from June 1914 to August 1914, came to be known as July Crisis. The conditions of the Austrian Archduke Franz Ferdinand on 20th July 1914 provided the catalyst of the emergency of war. Provided the catalyst for the emergence of war. It gave the immediate factor for Australian Emperor to give ultimatum to Siberia. The most prominent theme in the history of the World War I was the German imperialism, that is, Wilhelmina wit politics, which brought it at loggerheads with Berlin. Germany's aim of becoming world power meant acquisition of colonies, and the natural corollary of this war, a strong navy. Wilhelmina in fact said, "Our future lies in the water." This provided the framework that the basic tensions, secondly, principle of national self-determination constituted with its revolutionary latent potential a permanent threat to the old dynastic empires and build up tension in the South Coast Empire. The determination of the German Empire to uphold the conservative and monarchy principles by any means against the rising flood of nationalism and liberalism, plus its Welt politic, which is world politic in German, made war inevitable. Balkan crisis is one of the cause for the First World War. The most prominent reflection of active forces of national and revolutionary democracy was seen in Balkan. Before 1914, the principle of notion of self-determination directly threatened Ottoman Empire and led to the First Balkan War against Turkey. This was as a war of national liberation. After the new Balkan nations had politically pushed Turkey out of Europe, the next target was inevitable Austria-Hungary, which was closely allied to Germany. Many thousands of Serbs and Bulgarians as well as Greeks were still living under Turkish rule. The experience of young Turk rule caused Greeks, Serbs, Montenegrians and Bulgarians to unite into the common front of Balkan League. Montenegro declared war on Turkey, and within a week Bulgaria, Greece and Serbia did the same. By the end of the month, they had defeated every Turkish army in Europe, capturing most of the Turkish territories in Europe. A conference of ambassadors of European countries met in London, resulting settlement of the former Turkish lands among the Balkan states. The Serbs were not happy with their gains, as they wanted Albania so as to have an outlet to the sea. Austria, Britain and Germany insisted that Albania should become an independent state to deliberately limit Serbian expansion southwards. The Balkan crisis created imperial rivalries. The reason being the interest of the powers in Balkan Peninsula in the wake of disintegration of Ottoman Empire. A treaty was signed between the Balkan state and the Turks. The Turkish rule in Europe had virtually ended. The Bulgarians were dissatisfied since they were hoping to gain Macedonia, some part of which occupied and retained by Serbia. Bulgaria therefore attacked Serbia and it started the World War. Now we'll talk about the division of world into two camps. The other factors which made the First World War inevitable was the German Empire itself. The World War was the direct result of German policies and German ambitions. Firstly, its ambition to attain the status of world power besides other world power like France, Britain. Secondly, its self-proclaimed role against revolution and democracy. The origins of the First World War is attributed to Bismarck's system of alliances and alignment that led to the division of world into two rivalry camps. The first, the Triple Alliance, which has Germany, Austria-Hungary and Italy. The hostility between France and Germany was one of the most constant factors in international diplomacy between 1871 and 1914. After the unification of Germany, the primary object of Bismarck's diplomacy, Bismarck was the Chancellor of Germany, was to place new empire of Germany on safe foundations. To achieve this goal, Bismarck needed to ensure that France, the greatest potential enemy of Germany, remained isolated. In order to achieve his goal, he crafted friendship with Austria-Hungary, Italy, England and Russia also. In 1872, Germany, Austria and Russia formed a league of three emperors which came to be known as Dreikaiserbund. The alliance did not endure long, primarily because Austria and Russia had conflicting interests in southeastern Europe. At the Congress of Berlin in 1878, Bismarck therefore exerted his influence against Russia. Russo-German relations became strained for a while. However, Bismarck secured a firm alliance with Austria known as Dual Alliance. It was primarily against the Russia. It provided that either party, Germany or Austria, attacked by Russia, then the other party would be bound to render military assistance. Using Franco-Italian rivalry over Tunis as an excuse, Bismarck persuaded Italy to forget her hereditary enmity towards Austria, and in 1882 concluded a secret military pact between Italy, Austria-Hungary and Germany. In 1884, he concluded the famous Reinsurance Treaty, which guaranteed Russian neutrality in the event that Germany came under attack by any European power. Kaiser William II, the Emperor of Germany, believed that the Germans were a nation capable of infinite expansion and were destined to dominate not only Europe but the whole world. He tried to secure colonies which would offer an outlet for surplus population and expanding commerce. Now we will talk about the another camp, the Triple Entente, as it is known as. It has Britain, France and Russia. German colonial ambitions called for the construction of a large and powerful naval fleet. This was looked upon a challenge to England's age-long naval supremacy. Britain was driven into forming a league with her own traditional enemy, and it was France. And so, in 1904, an Anglo-French agreement was concluded. In 1907, an agreement between Russia and England, and that is the Anglo-Russian Conventions, also settled. Through this alliance, they settled the outstanding dispute between these two countries relating to Afghanistan, Tibet, and Persia, and thus the three great powers came together and formed the Triple Entente. According to A.J.P. Taylor, Bismarck in 1871 created a new Europe, and in order to preserve it, in 1879 he began to manufacture of alliances. The coming of the war is also attributed to international armaments role in Europe, which comprised the essential components as Germany, French, and Russia's role to bigger army and an Anglo-German naval race. Kurt Ridgler gave expression to the widespread social Darwinism theory of the time. He talked about the supremacy Germans wanted to have in the world by endorsing the view that the world should one day be headed by German ideas and methods. Conflict between European nations were now equated with the biological struggle between species. The continuation conflict between races and nations would ended up in the theory of survival of the fittest. The period from 1880 to 1914 saw a sudden and dramatic upsurge of expansion of empires in Africa and Asia, and the World War I has linked to imperialist rivalries. Armed struggle has been regarded as an important part of imperialist expansion. Yet, expansion during this period took place without any war between the European powers. Some historians have even argued that imperial rivalries provided a safety valve for tension that built up in Europe and thus prevented the development of a war-like situation in Europe. Article 231 of the Treaty of Versailles held Germany and its allies guilty for starting the First World War. During the interwar years 1919 to 1939, in 1939 we see the emergence of the origins of the Second World War. The German government sought to reserve this verdict and released 15,889 documents during the 1920s to accomplish this end. The weight of this evidence led many to alter their original views regarding the responsibility of the First World War. Lloyd George, the British Prime Minister, in his war memoir, suggested that all the nations of Europe slithered over the edges of the boiling condition of war in 1914. Erich Brandenburg argued that Germany did not plan for war in 1914. He blamed Russia for wanting control of the Balkans and France for wanting revenge for the loss of Alsace and Lorraine. In the 1930s, Sidney Fay's book Origins of the First World War argued that no European powers wanted war in 1914 and that all power to greater or lesser degree must share blame. Germany did not plot the war and was a casualty of its alliances with Austro-Hungary. Austria-Hungary was not responsible, but maybe it was acting in self-defense against the expansion at Serb nationalism. Serbia may not have wanted war but believed that it would be forced to fight. Russia was partially responsible for encouraging Serbia and mobilizing its troops. France can be blamed for its determination to support Russia. Britain did make efforts for peace but did hardly anything to restrain Russia or France. Fay concluded that the verdict of sole German guilt was defective. During 1930s, the question of German guilt in foreign relations was cordially dropped. In 1938, Gooch stated the orthodox view by saying that the belief that any nation or statesman was the arch-criminal in 1914 is no longer valid. Gerhard Ritter stated that the available documents do not permit attribution that deny of a permitted desire for a European war on the part of any government or people in 1914. Ritter justifies Germany's war efforts as attempts at spiritual self-defense and self-justification. Fischer made some of the claims as Germany was prepared to launch the First World War in order to become a great power. Germany encouraged Austria-Hungary to start a war with Serbia even when it seemed elder that such war could not be localized. Germany developed a clear set of aims to gain large territorial gains in Central and Eastern Europe. In his next book, War of Illusions, Fischer wrote that the Kaiser's government cold-bloodedly planned the outbreak of the First World War from 1912 onwards. In fact, domestic issues shaped German foreign policy. The Kaiser and his government, in order to divert attention from domestic discontentment, followed this aggressive foreign policy. According to Fischer, Bethmann Hollweg was the prime mover of German policy during the July crisis of 1914 and a key figure in the development of Germany's expansionist aims once war began. The blank check given to Austria-Hungary during the July crisis and Bethmann Hollweg's last-minute plea for British neutrality were essential parts of a pre-existing German policy. He stresses the defensive character of Germany's war effort and war aims. Even Bethmann Hollweg spirits were essentially defensive and pacific at that time. During the 1960s, the American political scientists R.C. North and R.O. Halsey, on the basis of verbatim documents of K decisions maker in Germany, Russia, Austria, Hungary, Britain, and France during the July crisis of 1914, came to these conclusions. As he mentioned, all the major powers felt that their rivals were an antagonistic and saw themselves as being friendly. The major leaders became obsessed with short-term decisions during the July crisis. All the major powers felt that they were the injured party in the crisis. In 1961, Fritz Fischer dropped a bombshell onto the debate by publishing a book, Grab for World Power, which was published in English and Germany's aim in the First World War. Fischer primarily focused on the aims and policies at four key German figures: the Kaiser, Bethmann Hollweg, which we have discussed in length, he was the Chancellor, Gotthard von Jagow, the Foreign Secretary, and Hartmut von Moltke, Chief of Army in General Staff. Fischer sees a clear continuity in German foreign policy from the Kaiserreich, the German Empire, to Nazi Germany. Even Luigi Albertine suggested that Germany was the nation most responsible for the outbreak of the First World War. But Gerhard Ritter criticized Fischer's view by stating that there is no evidence of a unified German plan for war by supporting Austria, Hungary, and by allowing military planners to devise war plans which were bound to lead to the crisis. Ritter claims that the German government wanted to risk the threat at a European war in order to gain a diplomatic victory, but hoped that it would not actually be required to fight one. Supporters of Fischer are Emanuel Gies, Hans-Rich Wilhelm, and others. Gies suggested that the dominant long-term cause of the First World War was the German desire for Weltpolitik, which means world politics. The basic short-term cause is seen as being German actions during the July crisis. The July crisis of 1914 was thus a logical culmination of the German challenge to the existing status quo in European relations. The German government quite deliberately risked a European war in 1914 to achieve the aims of Weltpolitik. More recently, John Raw has assembled important new evidences which add powerful weight to the view that leading German figures were planning war. Raw claims that the German government was pursuing a pre-existing plan during the July crisis, either to split the Triple Entente or to provoke a European war. Between 1912 and 1914, there was a firm German plan for the hedged period prior to the association at Sarajevo. The chief critics of the Fischer believed that German leaders desired a limited defensive war in 1914. Edmund Gehlen and Karl Edmund state that Bethmann Hollweg took a calculated risk in 1914 in order to gain a diplomatic victory, or following this to fight a defensive preventive war with limited objectives. But Gehlen accepts that German policy took advantage of new Austro-Serbs crisis to neutral its own aims. But Gehlen accepts that German policy took advantage of the Austro-Serbs crisis to nurture its own aims. It seems that the Kaiser and his government hoped that the crisis might divide the Entente powers and give Germany a bloodless diplomatic victory. The domestic policies of the Kaiser Reich have been widely examined to show that it was linked to its foreign policy. V. R. Berghan and Hans Wellher have shown that how the aristocratic Junker elite supported an aggressive foreign policy as an escape from the political consequences of industrialization, especially the desire for greater democracy in Germany. Wellher believed that Fischer's idea of continuity in German history from 1871 to 1914 is the best way in which to understand the origins of the First and Second World Wars. Paul Kennedy has demonstrated how wealth politics was often used as a distraction from domestic problems, and believed that term of Social Democrats was a contributory factor in the decision of war. Many German historians like Ralph Dahrendorf believe that there was a special German path of development which played such a prominent role in determining the shape of German history over a century. They suggested that Imperial Germany was an industrial feudal society composed of modern industrial economy, which allowed for the survival of pre-industrial elites who were determined to hold back democratic development. The German middle class never gained a dominant position in German politics. In order to justify the lack of democracy, the Kaiser and the Junkers devised strategies and used foreign policy and imperialism to prepare middle class to support the ruling elite. This is why Germany embarked on wealth politics and decided on war in 1914. Richard Evans, David Law have spoken of bourgeois hegemony in the economic, social and cultural life during the Kaiser Reich. They have rejected the idea that Imperial Germany used war and foreign adventures to divert the masses from domestic problems. From 1912 to 14, deadlock exists in German politics between the Reichstag, German parliament, which was growing in status and wanted to restrict military spending, and the Kaiser, on the other hand, and his military leaders who wanted to increase in this expenditure. A.J.B. Taylor argued that the outbreak of the World War caused most entirely by rival plans of mobilization by the European powers. According to L.F.C. Trunner, the crisis cannot be understood without knowledge of the balance of military power, planning and strategy, and the balance of power in the Balkans was turning sharply against Austria-Hungary. As Michel Howard argued that militarism, armament, and the war plans of the major power were key factors in the outbreak of the war. The attempt to explain the role of imperialism in the war was put forward by Lenin himself. In his path-breaking work, Imperialism, the Highest Stage of Capitalism. This interpretation saw the war as being direct consequence of imperial rivalries which led capitalist businessmen to seek new markets. In fact, as Paul Schroeder says, that the structure of international power politics was the central determinant of the First World War. H.W. Koch states that by and large within and without Germany, the consensus was established as summarized by Lloyd George that all nations of Europe had entered into the war. This meant that Germany was no longer the party carrying the sole gift for the war, and that Germany had not entered the war premeditatedly. James Joll emphasizes on the importance of the intellectual currents and intellectuals' influence upon policy makers. This war thus had several causes, which is still debated, with none alone standing as a sufficient cause. Sneh Mahajan, in her book Issues in 20th Century World History, stated that the mood of 1914, which was the result of intensification of feelings of nationalism and imperialism. Nationalism exercised immense power over the European mind. It welded millions of people into a collectivity ready to make sacrifices for the country. The attitude to the outbreak of war in 1914 showed that the claims of the nation state and the value it had included remained for most people and rulers of Europe stronger than any other loyalty. Not only did the citizens welcome the war, they continued to join the army in unexpectedly large numbers, at least until 1916. Widespread acceptability of war explains the outpouring of sentiments which made soldiers and civilians fight a total war. Now we'll talk about some of the events leading to the war. The first, the Moroccan crisis, 1905 to 1906. This crisis was the first of a series of incidents that culminated in the outbreak of the war. France was looking for an opportunity to recover the provinces of Alsace and Lorraine, which had been annexed by Germany in the Battle of Sedan in 1870. The problem of Morocco in North Africa provided the justification for an open rupture between Germany and France. Because of its rich iron deposits and partially because of its strategic position, Morocco received the interest of many European powers like Spain, Berlin, France, Germany, and Italy. The French claim over Morocco was opposed by the Germany. Emperor Kaiser William II played crucial role himself in this crisis. The emperor insisted that all foreign powers were entitled to enjoy equal commercial and economic interest in that country. In 1906, a conference met in southern Spain. Germany thus won a diplomatic victory, but the substantial profits went to France. This action only served to strengthen the Anglo-French entente. It also brought Britain into more cordial relations with Russia. The conference decided that France could not annex Morocco entirely, but she was authorized subject to a certain amount of international control for administrative purpose. The next event is the Bosnia Crisis 1908. The Bosnia Crisis aggravated the tension. Bosnia-Herzegovina had been brought under the administration of Austria by the decision of the Berlin Congress 1878. Taking advantage of young Turk revolution in Turkey, Austria observed these two provinces within her empire in 1908. This inflamed Serbian nationalist sentiments against Austria, since these provinces included 1 million Serbs among their population. The Serbs appealed to their fellow Slavs, the Russian, for help in the expectation of French and British support. Austria-Hungary backed by Germany. Serbia became violently hostile to Austria, and his quarrel culminated in the outbreak of the war. Another leading event was the Agadir Crisis 1911. The Agadir Crisis was a further development of the Moroccan crisis. France was bent upon the annexation of the Moroccan provinces. On the plea of serious internal disorder, she marched her troops into the Moroccan capital and refused to withdraw them. Germany sent a warship to defend German interest, but in reality it was in the hope of blackmailing France into giving up some of France's colonies elsewhere in Africa. British was worried about German expansion in Agadir, as German could construct a naval base which could threaten British trade interests, and so British stood out firmly on the side of France. Germany and France signed a treaty in July 1911, though it stopped war between two rival groups but further strengthened the Triple Entente. Now we'll talk about the immediate cause of the war, also known as the July Crisis. The Archduke Franz Ferdinand, heir to the throne of Austria, was paying an official visit to the Bosnia capital of Sarajevo when he was fired at and killed by a group of terrorists on 20th June 1914. Austria suspected that the hand of the Serbian government lay behind the murder and that behind the entire plot a great conspiracy to cause the disintegration of the Habsburg Empire. On 20th July 1914, the 20th July 1914, the Austrian Ministerial Council sent an ultimatum to Belgrade, Serbia, demanding the apprehension of the criminals who were hiding there and their handover to the Austrian authorities. Serbia rejected the ultimatum. Using this incident as an excuse, Austria declared war on Serbia exactly 1 month after the assassination on 20th July 1914. Germany backed Austria under the terms of the Triple Alliance. Triple Entente soon joined in from the other side of the camp, and thus First World War begins. Impact of the war. The Treaty of Versailles signed with Germany was a punitive one. Germany was made to surrender 13% of its territory and 13% of its economic resources to the victorious power. Germany lost Alsace and Lorraine to France and Saar for 15 years so that France could extract coal, steel and iron from this key industrial area of West Germany. The Germany was made to give territories to Belgium and Denmark. Restrictions were placed on Germany's army, navy and air force. Germany was made to surrender its colonies, overseas investments and even merchant fleet. Germany's African colonies were made mandates under the League of Nations. To justify the extraction of reparation for losses suffered in this war, the war guilt clause was inserted in the treaty. They remained bitterly resentful of these provisions and thought them too grossly unjust. Italy did make some substantial gains. It received some territories but denied the share in the territories of the Ottoman Empire and in the colonial territories of Germany. Britain and France justified this action on the ground, like Japan, Italy had made only a minor contribution to the victory. The Italians felt cheated. This cost gave disillusion in Italy and added to Italy's frustration at the treatment it got from fellow victors in the peace conference. Non-fulfillment of territorial ambitions made Italy a revisionist power. In the background of rising unemployment and inflation, Italy plunged into political instability. Mussolini took this advantage of the situation in creating a fascist regime in Italy. Japan was the only non-Western power to sit with the victors at the peace conference. Japan had three aims. 1. To formalize control over Jeju. 2. To acquire German island in the West Pacific. And 3. To make representative accept a clause on racial equality. But Japan got only partial success, only got Pacific Island surrendered by Germany as mandates. The Japan was deeply disappointed. The Sultan of Turkey signed the Treaty of Sevres in 1920, agreeing to near total dismemberment. Turkey was declared a republic with the vision of the developing as a modern secular nation, and the office of Khalifa was abolished. In advocating the creation of the League of Nations, President Wilson had hoped that it would become an agent of peaceful conflict throughout the world. With this hope, they organized League of Nations. But the US Senate did not ratify the Versailles Treaty and American membership of the League. Immediately after the war, business that had flourished because of the war were reduced to bankruptcy, which led to unemployment, economic discontent, and a wave of strikes in America. However, US economy began to recover very quickly by taking advances in the technology. The US became a creditor nation, advancing loans to all major European countries. The US replaced the place of Britain in the world economy before 1914. In the history of Europe, the First World War marks a turning point. The state mobilized all human, material, ideology, and even spiritual resources to win the war. For the first time, a generation in Europe came to grips with death in a massive numbers. It proved to be the bloodiest war in history until then. In 4 years, Europe lost 8 million men. We had a revolutionary impact. War had a revolutionary impact on society and culture. All sections of society were affected by this conflict, even in those countries who were not involved in the war directly or indirectly. Civilians and industry were mobilized for war purposes. European countries faced food shortage, hoarding, and black marketing became very common in European society. Food riots became also very common. War also affected the family institution of the European people. During the war, women working in the factories in Germany increased 4 times. In Britain, also some 80,000 women were working in the factories. But we could not say war bring liberation with it for the women. They were working in the factories temporarily. Participation in war efforts outside the home did give to women a new sense of equality with men. Now they were earning. However, during the war times, jobs were seen as purely temporarily ground. When men returned home after the war, women were expected to vacate the job for the men and return back to their environmental job as wives and mothers. In some of the European countries, women got the right to vote during 1918 and 19. War also produced widowhood in European countries. In Germany alone, there were 2 million war widows. So, war created widowhood in European society at a large scale. War did not produce just political consequences, but it also had a deep impact on the ways of thinking, visual arts, music, literature, and philosophy. It shook long held assumptions about the power of reason, inevitability of progress, the moral dignity of human beings, our capacity to know ourselves, and the ability of people and nations to live in harmony. It demonstrated that progress had a great potential for chaos and evil also. Now we'll talk about some of the important impact of war on the colonies. The First World War affected the whole world. Colonies were used as a reservoir for manpower and material resources. The European countries, they have acquired manpower and material resources from their respective colonies. The use of soldiers from the colonies on the equal terms was bound to increase their self-esteem and expectations. European powers also acquired essential war materials from colonies and for this purpose tended to treat colonies as extension of their home front. They drafted labor and procured materials forcibly in Egypt, China, and Vietnam, which strengthened the anti-British feeling there. The wartime demand also boosted the local industry by creating massive demands for goods. This intended to transform artisans and casual laborers into a working class and made it sizable in absolute terms. These sections supported the post-war struggle for liberation. There was much talk of the principle of self-determination and of the desire to make the world safe for democracy. But at the peace conference, the victorious powers made it apparent that such ideas applied only to Europeans. They refused to accept equality between races even in principle for the non-European countries, as we can see in the case of Japan proposal. The treaties of 1919 could be based on a series of compromises that left a residue of deep dissatisfaction. Strategies, considerations, and dominated decisions taken by the great powers conflicted with ideas of self-determination. Too many states were left dissatisfied and looked to the future for revision. But surely this was not the led straight to 1913. What followed after 1919 was also very important in this context. Dwindling cooperation between the allies, the nature of the peace treaties, strictness over reparation issues, and weak position of the League and its failure to enforce the security clauses of the Treaty of Versailles were amongst the factors that lead to another round of hostilities. Thank you for watching.